Summary of Self-Reliance by Ralph Waldo Emerson. In the beginning of his article, Emerson included 3 epigraphs that provide a preview of the focus of the essay, which is on self-reliance. He then starts the piece by thinking about how often someone has a great idea but then brushes it off because it was just in their head. Emerson says that these moments of personal understanding are even more valuable than the ideas of famous writers and philosophers. He says that it is only a mature thinker who understands that the way to greatness is to think in your own unique way, not by copying what everyone else thinks. Emerson then says that realizing that you should trust yourself more than anyone else is the most important thing you can do. Emerson said that babies, kids, and even animals know this naturally, which means that they should be copied. Self-reliance is also something that Emerson thinks boys have because they are independent, don't value authority, and are quick to judge everything they see. Emerson then talks about the link between the person and society. He says that when we are alone, we can be like babies or children, but when we go out into the world, that little voice inside us that tells us the truth gets lost. According to Emerson, people who want to be independent again must accept nonconformity, even if that means rejecting what most people think is good. Emerson thinks there is a higher form of virtue than what respectable people say or asking people to help those in need. This goodness comes from inside each person, not from what other people can see. Emerson also said that living by the world's idea of goodness seems easy, and living by one's own idea of goodness is easy when one is alone, but it takes a real brave person to live by one's own idea of goodness when society is pressuring them to do otherwise. It might seem easy to just give in to what society wants, but it is harder because it spreads out your strength. Emerson knows that being a nonconformist is easier to fight about than to live. He says that if someone finally refuses to follow society's rules, they should be ready for criticism from all walks of life. If well-educated people don't like something, it will be easy to ignore. But if common people, or the mob, don't like something, it will take everything a person has to face it. Emerson also thinks that the world's fixation on uniformity is a problem for people who want to be different. But, he says, why should you be limited by what you've done in the past or be afraid of going against what you said? Emerson says that society has turned inconsistency into a devil, which has made people narrow-minded. He talks about religion and historical figures to show that all great people we've ever met didn't let the past hold them back. He tells them that if you want to be great, you should enjoy being confused too. Emerson says that each person should believe that inconsistency is only a look, because every action always shows an inner harmony that comes from being yourself. Being true to yourself means that the person's deeds will be real and good. Based on what he said in the first part of the essay, Emerson thinks that by now everyone understands how silly conformity is and how it's hurting American society. He says that the American society of the time is one of mediocrity that can only be overcome by realizing that everyone has a little bit of the world, or God, inside them, and that God can be found wherever a person lives in their true self. Emerson thought that people can connect with truth, justice, and knowledge by being still and letting their instincts speak from the reality that holds us and everything else together. Everything else, like time, space, and even the past, only seems different from what it really is because of the way we think. Emerson says that people can get away from that way of thinking by expressing themselves against everyone, just like plants do, and living in the present moment. Some people in Emerson's time have lost all sense of what it means to be independent. He says that this time in history is weak and hasn't produced any great people. He also says that city boys looking for jobs give up as soon as they fail at their first attempt. Emerson admires the country boy who tries new things over and over again without caring about failing or fitting in. He thinks that people like this will make American history. Emerson says that if a person wants to be truly good, they must fight anything that gets in the way of their sense of self-identity, even if that makes other people think they are very evil. Meeting their ideas of what they owe to loved ones or even to themselves will make them feel good about themselves and might even help other people see things their way. Emerson thinks that living in a constant state of conflict with society is what true morality is. At the end of his article, Emerson applies the general idea of self-reliance to particular situations. He thinks that if we let it, self-reliance can change everything about society. He says that we should stop hoping for someone or something else to save us and start doing things ourselves. Instead of putting our experiences below faiths and beliefs, we should pay attention to our gut feelings. Emerson says that Americans should not move abroad to learn about other cultures. Instead, he says, they should use the things they can find at home to make their own arts, writing, and culture. Emerson thinks that progress is not important. He says we should stop trying to make it happen because it makes us weaker. He also says that progress doesn't happen in a straight line. Emerson says that people should stop taking their identities from their things and realize that the most important thing about a person is what's inside him. Self-reliance can even be used in politics. Emerson says that instead of having political groups run our lives, each person should run his own life by his instincts. Self-reliance is the real way to peace, Emerson says at the end.
About the author. Ralph Waldo Emerson was one of the most important writers and thinkers in the United States in the 1800s. His Puritan-descended father was a Unitarian preacher, and his devout Anglican mother was his mother. Emerson graduated from Harvard College in 1821 and went on to study at Harvard Divinity School. In 1829, he became a Unitarian minister at Boston's Second Church after being called there. In 1831, his young wife died too soon from tuberculosis. This made him question his Christian faith, and in 1832, he quit the church. He went to Europe, where he met Coleridge, Wordsworth, and Thomas Carlyle, among other great minds and artists of the time. Emerson moved to Concord, Massachusetts, for good in 1834. This would be his home for the rest of his life. Soon after, in 1836, he released Nature, which was his philosophical manifesto and a key text for the transcendentalist movement that grew up around him. This movement stressed the mysterious presence of God in nature. In 1840, he helped Margaret Fuller and others start The Dial, a transcendentalist journal. In 1841 and 1844, he collected and released 2 volumes, or series, of his essays. Experience was published in the second series. Emerson's literary reputation grew over the next few decades, and he gave talks all over the United States. By the time of his death in 1883, he was renowned as the Sage of Concord, one of American culture's greatest figures.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.